What is going on, guys? It is WrestleMania here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including the real reason why the Vision betrayed Seth Rollins. Is Seth Rollins legitimately injured? WWE talent now have trust issues? A Seth Rollins match has been scrapped? Has this put WWE into more problems? WWE release another star and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now, first story looks at whether Seth Rollins is legitimately injured. Our top story today takes a look at Seth Rollins' apparent injury as we weigh up all the evidence and determine whether the injury is actually legitimate. As let's not forget the biggest ruse of the century. When WWE delivered the Vision breakup on yesterday's Raw, one of the first things fans assumed was that Rollins was injured. It's no secret that Rollins was nursing his arm during and after Crown Jewel, and it appeared that Rollins was hurt in the coast-to-coast diving headbutt spot, which he landed right on his left arm. Several outlets have now provided an update on the status of the reigning world champion, and according to PW Insider, Rollins is indeed hurt. The angle on Raw earlier today with Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker turning on Seth Rollins was necessitated by Seth Rollins suffering an injury at Crown Jewel Perth over the weekend. The belief is Rollins hurt his left shoulder landing while executing the coast-to-coast dive towards the upside-down Cody Rhodes, who was hanging in the turnbuckles. There's no official word on the nature of the issue, but Rollins was seen sporting a sling in a photo he took with a fan Sunday evening in Australia. We're told that he will be undergoing tests in the coming days. Now, this report has been supported by Fightful Select and Body Slam, so it does appear to be legitimate. It's worth noting that a lot of sources were claiming that Rollins' injury in the summer was totally legitimate, so it is easy to see why fans are convinced that it could be a total work. WWE has played heavily into these types of angles in 2025, and it wouldn't come as too much of a surprise to see this become another angle for the upcoming WWE Unreal Season 2. Next up, the WWE injury kept top secret. Now, there is a lot more to this story than initially meets the eye. According to Fightful Select, the specifics of the injury are being kept extremely quiet backstage. The specific details of the injury were being kept very quiet. One WWE source said individually, not on behalf of the company, that an actual break of the arm would probably end up better than a shoulder injury because Rollins could be back in December from a break. However, they said it would be unlikely that they could avoid a drastic change if it was a more serious shoulder injury. He was being careful filming segments at Raw and was hiding the injury with baggier clothes. Fightful Select also adds that Rollins received praise for finishing the Crown Jewel matchup. Rollins was credited heavily from over a half dozen sources we spoke to for finishing the match, staying in Australia and working the show. Not just that, but doing a promo, a backstage segment, and a physical segment. Though details were foggy, the hope from staff backstage was that because Rollins was cleared for the segment, that injury might not be as bad as feared. He is expected to undergo further testing this week. Now, this isn't the first time in which Rollins has suffered a devastating injury, and ironically, it's almost 10 years exactly since he was last forced to surrender the world title. Then PW Insider followed up with another report that's just been released. There are some within WWE who believe Seth Rollins is headed for shoulder or rotator cuff surgery. We will of course keep you guys updated on the status of Rollins, and we hope that the injury really isn't too serious. Next up, WWE talent have trust issues. Now, it's not just fans who are questioning if Seth Rollins' injury is legitimate, as people backstage in WWE appear to have trust issues with the injury. According to the Observer Radio, due to the prior injury being a total work, there's a lack of trust present backstage. They were told it was from an injury in the match with Cody Rhodes, but after being told his other injury was legit, many are not fully believing anything right now. The lack of trust right now is pretty high. Now, this is the risk of working talent backstage, as when something legitimate happens to that same wrestler, nobody knows what's real and what's scripted anymore. To be honest, it's unlikely to be a ruse at this stage, with the countless outlets reporting that it's legitimate and Rollins evidently hurting his arm at Crown Jewel. All signs are pointing in the direction that this is unfortunately very real. As a lot of fans have pointed out since Raw, there's little for WWE to gain by having this yet be another work. Some fans are speculating that the payoff is Rollins once again outsmarting CM Punk and the Vision returning to his side when the two collide for the world title. This is just a ruse too far and would heavily impact the eventual breakup of the stable. But what was the real reason the Vision betrayed Seth Rollins? Now, with it being basically confirmed that Rollins is injured, there's a lot of questions, particularly when it comes to the Vision's breakup. Was this always planned to happen? Was this a pivot as a direct consequence of Rollins' injury? Well, Fightful Select now has the answer, and according to the reputable source, the angle was indeed a huge pivot. As far as creative, what is and wasn't planned, we'll get some details on that as time goes. Last week when The Observer reported that plans for Survivor Series War Games, we were told the lineup was actually an option. Today when we followed up, it was largely dismissed as not being the specific direction. WWE had Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed attack Rollins today, which was hinted to us was a heavy creative pivot without being explicitly stated. Fightful Select spoke to a source in WWE that indicated that they had heard that a Bron Breakker split originally wasn't planned or in the cards until next year. So was this angle done too soon? Well, it's hard to say. The Vision faction was in essence WWE's new version of Evolution, and it was mainly designed to take Bron Breakker to the next level. You could certainly argue that Breakker is already ready for the main event spot, and with Bronson Reed defeating Roman Reigns without the assistance of Rollins, it could be reasoned that this is the perfect time for the breakup. Interestingly, WWE has actively been teasing the breakup on screen for a number of weeks. During the return of AJ Lee, Breakker and Reed became separate entities away from Rollins, and during the build to Crown Jewel, Paul Heyman was causing conflict between the Bronze and Rollins. Even at Crown Jewel itself, Heyman insisted that the Bronze leave Rollins to battle Cody Rhodes alone. Therefore, if this was a pivot, it makes a ton of sense from the story WWE has been telling on TV, so they could easily get away with this being labeled as a long-term plan. Dave Meltzer on the Wrestling Observer Radio also chimed in, and according to Meltzer, the injury could be legitimate. But the hot angle could have been linked to the Raw ratings. Whether that changed the booking due to the injury or the booking changed based on the hot shot angle, because most likely Raw today, with its early start time, would have done the lowest rating in the show's history, so they wanted something to make people tune in, and that could be the case. But has this put WWE into some major problems? Now, War Games is next month, and since WrestleMania, WWE has been building towards a match between the Vision and the top babyfaces on Raw. And now that the faction is no more, and now that Seth Rollins is seemingly injured, where does this now leave things? Well, WWE did plant the seeds for an MFTs vs the Wyatt 6 match on last week's SmackDown, so that could easily be the War Games match. However, that feud has certainly come out of nowhere, so it's unclear how the wider fanbase would react to that feud being settled in War Games, which should be a storyline ender. When it comes to the women's match, there is an ongoing conflict between the Kabuki Warriors and Rhea Ripley and Io Sky that could transition into a War Games collision. But probably the most important question is, what will happen to the world title? This is where things get a little complex. WWE committed to crowning CM Punk as #1 contender, and it was reported last week that Punk vs Rollins for the world title was planned for next month's Saturday night's main event. Naturally, if the injury is legitimate, that match is off the cards, but Punk is still #1 contender. Based on the ending of Raw, Bron Breakker is coming for the world title, so does this mean that WWE move forward with Breakker vs Punk's singles feud for the world title to crown a new champion? One idea that has been floating around social media is turning Survivor Series into the Deadly Games, a one-night tournament to crown a new world champion. This could work extremely well and would definitely be one of the more exciting ways to crown a new champion. Due to WWE's branding of the PLE, they would still have to keep at least one War Games match on the card, but they could still easily deliver the tournament on the PLE. Next up, a WrestleMania match scrapped. Seth Rollins' injury could have significantly shaken up WWE's plans for the biggest show of the year. According to the Wrestling Observer Radio, Rollins was initially set to face Roman Reigns on the grandest stage at WrestleMania next year, but due to Rollins' injury, the match is off the table. This of course depends on how severe Rollins' injury ends up being, and if Rollins vs Reigns is off the table, then it certainly opens the door for Bron Breakker to finally receive that big time match versus the Tribal Chief. Next up, another WWE release. Another day, another WWE release. Yesterday, Ridge Holland announced via X that WWE will not be renewing his contract. Holland announced that although WWE will be cutting ties with him next month, they will commit to paying for his rehab as he's currently out of action with an injury. Holland has had a number of pushes over the years, including main eventing Survivor Series a number of years ago alongside key names such as Sheamus and Roman Reigns. Next up, a fan brought the Crown Jewel table. Now, at WWE's Crown Jewel 2025, Jey Uso accidentally speared Roman Reigns through a table, which led to Bronson Reed capitalizing and defeating Roman Reigns in a very shocking loss. However, WWE actually managed to sell the table afterwards. One fan dropped $2,500 for the broken table and has both Jey Uso and Bron Breakker's signature on it. And finally, Speed Wrestling for WWE. Our final story today takes a look at what exactly iShowSpeed is doing at the WWE Performance Center. A number of images have surfaced of Speed training at the WWE PC, and it surfaces thanks to a report from Fightful Select that he's been filming a new show titled Speed Goes Pro. Speed was at the WWE PC Monday filming for his new show Speed Goes Pro. A number of wrestlers attended the premiere for the program, which has already started its rollout. Speed is working directly with Randy Orton, who will be training Speed to see if he can compete as a WWE wrestler. This is the premise of the show, as Tom Brady was featured in the first episode. Orton was also at the WWE Performance Center today, and based on what we heard, it was reported to be the third episode of the season. WWE has remained open to him competing in a match in the future, but we haven't heard of any specific plans for such. Speed impressed with his appearance in the Royal Rumble this year, and it's only a matter of time before Speed has another featured match at an upcoming WWE PLE, possibly returning for the Royal Rumble again, or maybe even having a match at WrestleMania 42. But there you have it, folks. I will look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.